Welcome back to Read the World. My name is Derek Main and I review translated literature. Today is a special day because it is not a book review, but I wanted to throw up a quick reaction video to my favorite awards and the award that I follow the most and get the most from, which is the Best Translated Book Award. And this is the 13th year of the BTBAs. It was announced this morning, so right now it's Wednesday, April 1st. I know that things like what day it is, what month it is, and what time it is are fairly irrelevant at this point. But just for, the record books, that's what it is right now. So the reason I really like this, it's a big long list. I think there's 25 on it, and it's a great place to discover new stuff. I've always found that this is the list that will surprise me the most and will show me authors and works that I frankly just didn't hear about at all that year, and I follow this stuff pretty closely, so it's awesome. But it also has a great mix of stuff where I'm like, okay, I know that, and there was two that didn't make the list that surprised me, which I'll talk about. I ended up having read 5 of the 25, which is pretty good. The 4 that I own are up here. One of them, The Memory Police, I have loaned out. The Memory Police is also on the Booker long list, and I think we'll have to go through it to see if The Memory Police is the only one. I'm not entirely sure, but if you'll just go through the list with me, I'm gonna. For the ones I know, I'll say something kind of quick about. The ones that I don't know, I'll just read the little blurb and I'll give my in-the-moment reaction of if I think it's something I'm going to read or whatnot. But if you have read any of them, get down in the comments or at my Twitter at Derek Main Reads, DerekMaine Reads. And let me know, because I definitely use this as a way to kind of map out my reading, and this has given me this morning honestly some excitement. Like I've got something that I'm looking forward to tackling. I'm not going to be able to read the whole long list, and I think you'll see that there's stuff on the long list that is probably not of interest to me, but with 25 you're gonna find some stuff. So excuse me as I have to read down today a little bit as I go through stuff. A couple stats. So the Millions, that site actually debuted the list. So there's some I'm looking at themillions.com, and a couple things about it. So 35 books on this year's long list. I'm only doing 25 because I don't do the 10 for poetry. It represent 20 different countries and feature authors writing in 18 languages. This was surprising to me. No previous BTBA winners were nominated this year. So surprising that Freyson wasn't nominated for The Dreamed Part. I believe he did win for The Invented Part. That isn't one of the two that I was going to say is my big shocker or anything. I think that it's tough with series of novels. It's kind of like once one has been recognized in some sort of award, and we'll get with that probably momentarily here with Despentes, it's kind of tough to continually give, you know what I mean? In a way, once one is recognized, and it's usually either the first or the last one, that's kind of like the recognition that, oh, this is a great work, but it's still people still seem to think of it as one thing. Anyway, so no previous BTBA winners. Familiar translators, of course, and I think that's all for the stats that I wanted to do. Yeah, right? Yeah, I think that's good. Okay. So the first one is The Wind That Lays Waste by Selva Almada. And this is translated by Chris Andrews, one of the most famous translators there is, from Grey Wolf Press. So I did a review of this, and you can find that on my channel. I love this. Great modern allegory between sort of faith and a more humanistic approach. Really excited to see this on the list, and yeah, that's good. I'm glad it's getting some recognition there. A fable. That's the way I kind of look at it. The second one is The Book of Collateral Damage by Sinan Antoon, translated from the Arabic by Jonathan Wright. And this is from Iraq on Yale University Press. And if I am doing it right here, you should see the book in what is my first ever actual some editing thing. Am I an editor now? Maybe I'm an editor now. Okay, so let's go to the description of this. I'm reading this for the first time, didn't know this book. The Book of Collateral Damage, widely celebrated author Sinan Antoon's fourth and most sophisticated novel, follows Namir, a young Iraqi scholar earning his doctorate at Harvard, who is hired by filmmakers to help document the devastation of the '03 invasion of Iraq. During the excursion, Namir ventures to Al-Mutabi Street in Baghdad, famed for its bookshops, and encounters Wadud, an eccentric bookseller who's trying to catalog everything destroyed by war, from objects, buildings, books, and manuscripts, flora and fauna, to humans. Entrusted with the catalog and obsessed with Wadud's project, Namir finds life in New York movingly intertwined with fragments from his homeland's past and its present, destroyed letters, verses, epigraphs, and anecdotes in this stylistically ambitious panorama of the wreckage of war and the power of memory. So, that's the Book of Collateral Damage. First impressions, I like the concept. I don't think it would go kind of at the top of my list. I have some trouble with recent war stuff. Why is that? I don't know. Why am I admitting that? I don't know either. But I like the bookseller angle there, so that's pretty cool. The next one up is Welcome to America by Linda Bostrom Nosgard. I think that's his ex-wife. Translated from the Swedish, although I'm not looking it up, so I'm not sure. Translated from the Swedish by Martin Aitken, Sweden World Editions. And just for reference, I have never read any of who I believe is her ex-husband, the other Nosgard. So, Welcome to America. What do we have here? Again, no clue for me. I haven't heard of it. Ellen's stopped talking. She thinks she may have killed her dad. Her brother's barricaded himself in his room. Their mother, a successful actress, carries on as normal. We're a family of light, she insists, but darkness seeps in everywhere, and in their separate worlds, each of them longs for togetherness. Welcome to America is a scintillating portrait of a sensitive, strong-willed child and a young mind in the throes of trauma, a family on the brink of implosion, and the love that threatens to tear them apart. So this is not that interesting to me, but I will admit that that could be just a blurb problem. You know, writing great blurbs is one of the... It's crazy, right, how hard it is. There's some blurbs I won't read because I know I want to read the book and I don't want to be primed. There's other blurbs that, I knew I wanted to read Hurricane Season by Mel Core, translated by Sophie Hughes, out now. Fitzcarraldo for Europe, New Directions for here in America. I knew I wanted to read that when I first read the blurb, probably in September of last year. It started with The Witch is Dead, and I was just boom, it hit like that. But then there are other blurbs, like that phrase on, the dream part that I just read and was on the 2-month review for. I didn't read the back of that blurb because I didn't want to know, since I had already read part 1, I didn't want to know where the story was going. Does that make sense? I wanted to just hop right back in. Anyway, I don't think the one I just read, Welcome to America, is a great blurb. It's not selling me, not one I'm interested in. The next one literally just won a huge award, and this is also, I see the translator has at least 2 on here, maybe he has 3. Amelia by Jean-Baptiste Delamo, translated from the French by Frank Wynne, and both French, and Grove Press. So let's check out this. I do know a little bit about this, not a ton, but Amelia is a powerful novel about man's desire to conquer the natural world and an unflinching, visceral, and important exploration of human nature. An intergenerational story set in the west of France, mirroring the life and life cycle of humans and pigs. Delamo follows 5 generations through 2 world wars and the changes brought about by industrialization. At the heart of the story is a striking critique of human relationships and the damaging nature of emotional inheritance. So, when I had first heard about this book, I was not that interested, but it just won, yesterday, a very big award, and now it's on this long list. So I'd say this is kind of moving up my TBR. I'm getting a little more interested. Honestly, the thing about humans and pigs, I just like had no idea what to think. Kind of reminded me of Upstream Color, that movie that came out, I don't know, probably 10 years ago now. Shane is his first name, maybe Carruth is his last, but anyway, that had some weird human animal elements to it. All right, the next one is from the same translator, and this one we own. We've read, we've reviewed Vernon Subutex 1 by Virginie Despentes, translated from the French by Frank Wynne from FSG. So, won't say much about that because I have a review. Other than, I figured it'd be on here. I think there were a lot of guesses, that it would be. I really, really liked one. My issues come about in 2, and I have fallen off a little bit. It made me go back and kind of question 1 a little bit, but I know that I'm out there with that, right? Like, I understand that that's not a popular opinion even amongst a very niche sort of thing. I just see a lot of character work and then sort of like action-y plot, like great stuff. In fact, I mean, as we saw yesterday, the stuff I'm reading right now. But I don't see a ton of substance there, and we're having to buy in a lot to certain assumptions, if that makes sense. It's a really fun read. I think 1 definitely like deserves to be on Longlist and stuff like that. Absolutely. I'm just not as enamored with it after reading 2. And I know that for some, like Knowledge Lost is a huge fan too. I think he likes 2 better, if I recall. Readers I really respect and like a lot are super into this. And this is when sometimes you just got to shake your head and say like, I don't know, it didn't hit me. Or I read it at the wrong time, which is usually what happens. All right, next up we have A Girl Returned by Donatella de Pietratonio. If you say it real fast, then it makes... Translated from the Italian by Anne Goldstein, and this is Europa Editions. I had never heard of it, so it says, without warning or a word of explanation, an unnamed 13-year-old girl is sent away from the family she has always thought of as hers to live with her birth family, a large, chaotic assortment of individuals whom she has never met and who seem anything but welcoming. Thus begins a new life, one of struggle, conflict, especially between the young girl and her mother, and deprivation. But in her relationship with Adriana and Vincenzo, 2 of her newly acquired siblings, she will find the strength to start again and to build a new and enduring sense of self. Again, maybe this is a blurb problem, but that's not super interesting to me. Let me know if you read it. Next is EEG by Dasa Drednik, translated from the Croatian by Celia Hawkesworth from New Directions. This has been on my list already. I've been very interested in this book. Happy to see that it's getting some mention here because it sort of pushes it up my interest. But Financial Times Book of the Year. An urgent new novel about death, war, and memory from the highly acclaimed Croatian writer. So in this breathtaking final work, Dasa Drednik reaches new heights. Andreas Band's suicide attempt has failed. Though very ill, he still finds the will to tap on the glass of history to summon those imprisoned within. Mercilessly, he dissects society and his environment, shunning all favors as he goes after the evils and hidden secrets of our times. History remembers the names of the perpetrators, not the victims. Band remembers and honors the lost. As if left with only a few pieces in a chess game, Andreas Band and Dasa Drednik play a stunning last match against death. So, yeah, it's a great blurb, and it's one that I keep seeing. Hopefully the cover is right here, and you can see that it's a beautiful kind of striking cover, which is something that I'm just going to go out there and admit means a lot to me. Yeah, I like the design. I think of books as a physical object, and that's... So I want something kind of beautiful. All right. So, yes, I'm interested in that. I was before. Going to keep being very interested in that. Next up is Space Invaders by Nona Fernandez. Another one that we've read, we've reviewed. It ended up number 2 or 3 in our best books read last year. Translated from the Spanish by Natasha Weimer. And this is from Grey Wolf. So I hope this makes the shortlist. And there are 2 that I've read that I am really, really rooting for. And were they to win, I would be like over the moon, but I definitely want them on the shortlist. Space Invaders is one. read my review. I love this book. Read my review. I don't write, remember? Watch it. Next is Stalingrad by Vasily Grossman, translated from the Russian by Robert Chandler and Elizabeth Chandler from NYRB. So, Stalingrad, the description is, in April 1942, Hitler and Mussolini meet in Salzburg where they agree on a renewed assault on the Soviet Union. This is a long blurb. I'm going to go to the last part. In Stalingrad, published here for the first time in English translation, and its celebrated sequel, Life and Fate, Grossman writes with extraordinary power and deep compassion about the disasters of war and the ruthlessness of totalitarianism, without, however, losing sight of the little things that are the daily currency of human existence or humanity's inextinguishable saving attachment to nature and life. Grossman's two-volume masterpiece can now be seen as one of the supreme accomplishments of 20th century literature, tender and fearless, intimate, and epic. Well, I mean, they're selling that one pretty hard. Let me know if you've read it. I don't know. Why am I say how much I like this award, and then I'm sitting here being like, I don't know. It's a time period I've read a lot about, right? So what is it bringing kind of new? What's going to be really big and eye-opening about it? Tell me. All right, so next is the other one that I hope is on the short list, and if it wins, then that'd be amazing. This, spoiler alert, is probably the best book I've read so far this year, which is last year's best book of the year was a Charco Press. So if my best book ends up 2 years as a Charco Press, that'll be nuts. Die My Love, Ariana Harwitz, translated from the Spanish by Sarah Moses and Carolina Orloff. As I said, Charco Press, I have a review. Watch it. It's great. I'm so glad this is on here. Many guessed it would be. Next is Will and Testament by Vigdis Hjorth, translated from the Norwegian, by Charlotte Barslund, and that's from Verso. I love Verso books. 4 siblings, 2 summer houses, 1 terrible secret. That's a great trailer start for this one. When a dispute over her parents' will grows bitter, Bergelatt is drawn back into the orbit of the family she fled 20 years before. Her mother and father have decided to leave 2 island summer houses to her sisters, disinheriting the 2 eldest sisters from the most meaningful part of the estate. Will and Testament is a lyrical meditation on trauma and memory, as well as a furious account of a woman's struggle to survive and be believed. Vigdis Hjorth's novel became a controversial literary sensation in Norway and has been translated in 20 languages. And once I read that out loud just now about the controversial literary sensation, I realized that I had heard of this. And yeah, cool that it is on this list. I am not actually interested. I hate to say that, but it's true. Next is Good Will Come from the Sea by Christos Ikonomou, translated from the Greek by Karen Emmerich, and this is from Archipelago Books. I know a little bit about this one. It has been on my list, and now I think I'm definitely going to read it. I said yesterday in my review, I'm not a big short story reader. I kind of finally admitted that. I'm very much into the novel. So that's why this hasn't made it to the top. But these stories are apparently very connected. So this is a collection of blistering, darkly humorous stories that upend the idyllic image of the Greek holiday island. Seeking to escape the paralyzing effects of the Greek economic crisis, a group of Athenian friends move to an Aegean island in the hopes of starting over. Viewed with suspicion and disdain by the locals, they soon find themselves enmeshed in the same vicious cycle of money, power, and violence they thought they'd left behind. So, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, next up is Tentacle by Rita Indiana, translated from the Spanish by Aki Obijas, and this is from And Other Stories. So, Tentacle. Plucked from her life on the streets of post-apocalyptic Santo Domingo, young maid Aclede Figueroa finds herself at the heart of a voodoo prophecy. Only she can travel back in time and save the ocean and humanity from disaster. But first she must become the man she always was, with the help of a sacred anemone. Tentacle is an electric novel with a big appetite and a brave vision, plunging headfirst into questions of climate change, technology, Yoruba ritual, queer politics, poverty, sex, colonialism, and contemporary art. Bursting with punk energy and lyricism, it's a restless, addictive trip. The Tempest meets the Telenova. Well, there you go. This is why I follow this. This is why I follow this award. I have not heard of Tentacle, and we're popping that right at the top of the list. In fact, I'll probably order that today. That has all the things. Okay. Next up is China Dream by Ma Jin, translated from the Chinese by Flora Drew from Counterpoint. I have had this on my radar and am interested. Blending fact with fiction, China Dream is an unflinching satire of totalitarianism. After decades of loyal service, Ma Daod, a corrupt and lecherous party official, has been appointed director of the China Dream Bureau, charged with promoting President Xi Jinping's China Dream of national rejuvenation. But just as he is about to present his plan for a microchip that will be implanted into the brain of every citizen to replace all painful recollections with a collective dream of national supremacy, his sanity begins to unravel. Plagued by flashbacks of the Cultural Revolution, his nightmare visions from the past threaten to destroy his dream of a glorious future. This darkly comic fable is a dystopian vision of repression and state-enforced amnesia, set not in the future, but in China today. So, obviously I'm very interested because of the political connection of that one. And if you follow what I read, you know that I'm very much into that. Next one is another one that has been on my radar, Parade by Hiromi Kawakami, translated from the Japanese by Allison Markin Powell, and this is from Soft Skull. This is called Parade, a Folk Tale. And this is, we were talking about blurbs. This is a great blurb. On a summer afternoon, Tsukuki and her former high school teacher have prepared and eaten salmon noodles together. Tell me a story from long ago, Sensei says. I wasn't alive long ago, Tsuki says, but should I tell you a story from when I was little? Please do, Sensei replies. And so Tsuki tells him that when she was a child, she awakened one day to find something with a pale red face and something with a dark red face in her room, arguing with each other. They had human bodies, long noses, and wings. They were Tengu, creatures that appear in Japanese folk tales. The Tengu attach themselves to Tsuko and begin to follow her everywhere. Where did they come from, and why are they here? And what other invisible and unacknowledged forces are acting upon Tsuko's seemingly peaceful world? So, great blurb there. But I will say that while I had been interested in it, I'd like to know if anyone's read it. Hopefully, again, the cover's here. The cover's really beautiful. It's gotten a lot of really good press and whatever, but I haven't seen any of my readers, the folks that I follow, say anything about it. So if you've read it, say something. Next is Death is Hard Work by Khalid Khalifa, translated from the Arabic by Larry Price, and this is also FSG. I do know this one. I am personally not interested in this one, but I'll tell you about it. It is Syrian war, is what we're doing. So with the landscape of their childhood now a labyrinth of competing armies whose actions are at once arbitrary and lethal, the siblings' decision to set aside their differences and honor their father's request, and the father's request is to be buried in the family plot in their ancestral village of Amelia, quickly balloons from a minor commitment into an epic and life-threatening quest. So amidst this war zone is this big quest. Death is Hard Work. Had heard of it, not super interested, but if you've read it and love it, tell me. Next is The Boy by Marcus Malte, translated from the French by Emma Ramadan and Tom Roberge. Restless Books. Well, that's cool. I didn't know. Okay. Tom Roberge is an Emma Ramadan owned riffraff. I did not know Tom Roberge was a translator. I knew Emma Ramadan was. So, The Boy. This sounds weird. So it won the prestigious Prix Femina. The Boy is an expansive and entrancing historical novel that follows a nearly feral child from the French countryside as he joins society and plunges into the torrid events of the first half of the 20th century. When I first saw that blurb, however long it was, a couple months ago or whatever, and I don't know why I didn't notice at that time the translators, but anyway, I thought of, and this is terrible, but I thought, like, is this like a Forrest Gump where we're going to take someone and then, like, toss them through these major world events to see it through these innocent eyes or whatever? But as I looked more at the blurb today, I think the interest with this one could be like the feral child, like emerging from the countryside and into modernity. Okay, so now I'm kind of more interested if it, as long as it's like from the, and it's called The Boy, so hopefully it is. but truly like from the boys' perspective and not like another way of seeing World War I and World War II, you know, the Forrest Gump method. But yeah, kind of interested. That more interested now that I've read the translators and realized that they did that. Restless Books, if I didn't say that. Next is The Chef's, a Cook's Novel by Marie Ninja, translated from the French by Jordan Stump. Man, there's a lot of French on here. And that's from Knopf, from the Booker Prize nominated author of Three Strong Women. There you go. An elegant, hypnotic new novel about a legendary French female chef, the facts of her life, the nearly ineffable qualities of her cooking, and the obsessive, sometimes destructive desire for purity of taste and experience that shaped her life. Okay. Not super into it for me, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be great. The Memory Police is the fifth one I have read, the one I have put out, and as I said, Yogo Agawa, translated from the Japanese by Steven Snyder. This is Pantheon. I'm sure you've heard the 1984 type comparisons, Brave New World, basically dystopian future, kind of totalitarian novel, and a little science fiction-y. Pretty good. You'll notice I don't have a review of it, so like I think pretty good is a fair assumption of how I felt about it. You know, it was an enjoyable reading experience. I've been a little surprised how, you know, how much momentum is behind this one. And so obviously it's long listed for the Booker and now long listed for that one. But others have read it and really like it. I thought it was all right. All right, we've got, how many do we have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Man, it's a long list. They call it the long list. A Dream Come True by Juan Carlos Onetti, translated from the Spanish by Catherine Silver from Uruguay Archipelago Books. Archipelago? I always said that wrong. Whatever. A Dream Come True collects the complete stories of Juan Carlos Onetti, presenting his existentialist, complex, and ironic style over the course of his writing career. So, collection of stories. And an author in the Uruguayan villages I'd like to go to, so I'm into that. Next up is, actually this author I was going to read. I showed you yesterday that I got in Giselle Dome and I was going to read. This is the same author. So, 77 by Guillermo Sacamano, translated from the Spanish by Andrea Labinger. Is that the same? I'm always interested in that, if it's the same. Yep, same translator. And from Open Letter, Argentina book. So, 77. Buenos Aires, 1977. In the darkest days of the Videla dictatorship, Gomez, a gay, also a guy, high school literature teacher, tries to keep a low profile as, one by one, his friends and students begin to disappear. When Esteban, one of Gomez's favorite students, is taken away in a classroom raid, Gomez realizes no one is safe anymore, and that asking too many questions can have lethal consequences. Wow, okay, I am going to read this. It's interesting how thematically Space Invaders, quite a bit of that you could have, you know, moved in, replaced or whatever, so I'm interested in that. Okay, yeah, so 77, so we found two that like I'm definitely buying today. 77 and then Tentacle. Those are the two that I'm like, yes, 100% on. And then you've heard there's some where I'm like 3% on. But okay. Beyond Babylon by Igeba Skego, translated from the Italian. A lot of Italian on here too. By Aaron Robertson. This is from Two Lines Press. God, I just finished that Bee Book and Me. If you haven't seen that review, I'd encourage you to watch it. That was from Two Lines Press. Man, that damn book was so good. So good. Okay. Beyond Babylon, an epic spread across 3 nations. Beyond Babylon casts a probing, endlessly perceptive eye on the lasting effects of traumas, both national and personal, telling the engrossing lives of 2 half-sisters who meet coincidentally in Tunisia, their mothers, and the elusive father who ties all their story together. Igebos Gego's, God, I'm so sorry, virtuosic novel spreads thickly over Argentina's horrific dirty war, the chaotic final years of Siad Barre's brutal dictatorship in Somalia, which ended in catastrophic civil war, and the modern-day excesses of Italy's right-wing politics. So politically interesting, yeah. And interesting how much war dictatorship, totalitarianism, right wing. We're coming up with a lot of similar themes for this year's long list, which is interesting. And this time in history, it's very appropriate. Not super interested in that one, but maybe. Next is Labyrinth by Burhan Sanmez, translated from the Turkish by Ümit Hüseyin, and this is from Other Press. A blues singer, Boratin, attempts suicide by jumping off the Bosphorus Bridge, but opens his eyes in the hospital. He has lost his memory and can't recall why he wished to end his life. Let me just stop right there. That's interesting. Okay. He remembers only things that are unrelated to himself, but confuses their timing. He knows that the Ottoman Empire fell and that the last sultan died, but has no idea when. His mind falters when remembering civilizations, while life, like a labyrinth, leads him down different paths. From the confusion of his social and individual memory, he is faced with two questions. Does physical recognition provide a sense of identity? Which is more liberating for a man or a society, knowing the past or forgetting it? Okay. That's moving on up there for me. That's a good blurb. What's more liberating, knowing the past or forgetting it? Answer is knowing it, I think. I think that you need pain and suffering just as you need joy and love. Does physical recognition provide a sense of identity? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to either. I'm just guessing. Okay, yes, I'm interested in that, as you can tell, since I'm already trying to philosophize over it instead of moving on. Okay, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk, translated from the Polish by Antonio Lloyd-Jones from Riverhead. Of course, she just won the prize, the biggest of the prizes, the Nobel Prize, and Flights won a Booker last year, I think it was. And I am going to admit that I'm not a fan of her writing. I'm sorry. I'm a fan of her politics. I love it. I love her. Like, I watch her speeches. I'm super into it. I'm not super into the books. But I'll give you the description. In a remote Polish village, Janina devotes the dark winter days to studying astrology, translating the poetry of William Blake, and taking care of the summer homes of wealthy Warsaw residents. Her reputation as a crank and a recluse is amplified by her not-so-secret preference for the company of animals over humans. So, I have not read this one. And so it's probably not fair for me to say I don't, but, you know, the two things I've read I wasn't super into. And so, I probably will not read that one, but hundreds of thousands of other people will. So, that's great. Our last one is Territory of Light by Yuko Tsushima, translated from the Japanese by Geraldine Harcourt, and this is another FSG one. It is spring. A young woman left by her husband starts a new life in a Tokyo apartment. Territory of Light follows her over the course of a year as she struggles to bring up her 2-year-old daughter alone. At once tender and lacerating, luminous and unsettling, Territory of Light is a novel of abandonment, desire, and transformation. It was originally published in 12 parts in the Japanese literary monthly Gunzo between 1978 and 1979, each chapter marking the months in real time. I really like that. That's really cool. Like, the publication history of that is awesome. I'm just kind of lukewarm on if I'm interested in that or not. But for all of them or any of them, like, throw the comments down. Let me know. Also on Twitter what you think. Whew, I have talked for a long time. Those are my thoughts on the 2020 long list BTBA. Thanks, and be good to folks.